Hey, we are live.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for being part of our juice panel. This week, I think this topic is going to be really interesting. We are going to be talking about social zones. And for those of you who don't know what they are yet, you will find out. And each week since the COVID shutdown, we've really been focusing on how different industries have been affected. And now that our state is opening back up, I think one of the industries that is facing some really interesting challenges is the restaurant industry. So clearly, we're all so excited that we can get back out and go to restaurants. But there are definitely some challenges and some opportunities. And so this morning, our panel has a wide range of, there's 3 restaurateurs here, and then Hanna Schulze is from Local First. So I think it'll be a great discussion. So first, I'm going to introduce everybody. I'm Laurie Supinski. I'm a program director with Stark Garden. And then we have Murphy Ackerman, who is marketing guru and also has been throughout this whole thing that we've been doing online programming, our great producer. We've got Tarra Davis from Daddy Pete's Barbecue. We've got Chef Michael Alexander from the Restaurant Partners Group, who own quite a few restaurants in Grand Rapids and a few up in Traverse City. And then we have Edwin Collazo, who is the founder and owner of City Built Brewing. So a really diverse group of restaurants and even spread out around the city. So I think it'll be interesting to see how everybody's going to be affected or maybe not affected by social zones. And Hanna with Local First really is kind of involved in all businesses, all local businesses. So she can bring a perspective with that regard. So what I'm going to do now is kind of have each one of you give a little bit of background about yourselves, what you do, maybe talk a little bit about, prior to COVID, obviously your restaurants and your situation, and then maybe walk through a little bit of what happened when things shut down, and then we'll kind of morph into what are we doing as things are opening back up, and then we can talk about social zones and what they are becoming and what it'll look like in Grand Rapids. So why don't we start out with Hanna?
Thanks, Laurie, and such a privilege to join this awesome group of folks to chat about this today. So I'm the president of an organization called Local First, and Local First is an economic development organization that is headquartered in Grand Rapids. It serves the West Michigan region and represents or really exists to serve the local business community. So we have a vested interest in creating a vibrant local economy and all of the good things that come along with that. So our organization has been, since March or so, really doing quite a bit of outreach into the local business community, just kind of seeking out all the resources that have become available to businesses and helping to navigate through application processes, figure out policy from both the state and federal levels and the local levels to help advocate for local business voice. And so when the city has been able to do or use their creativity for things like social zones or creating leniencies around certain ordinances and things like that, we are often at the table to help represent the voice of local businesses who have really just been working hard to keep their businesses afloat through this. So giving a voice to that.
Right. Great. Thank you. Tarra, tell us about Daddy Pete's.
Well, Daddy Pete's, we started originally as a food truck. Then we added a takeout location about 3 to 4 years ago. And we also do catering. That's what we did pre-COVID. And once we entered COVID, we had a couple days of very scary, almost no sales. And then, so we decided to just go Thursday through Saturday just to see how it would go. And it's been extremely busy here for those 3 days that were open. Because we had the food truck and our lobby was closed, we made a transition to putting our food truck out front to help us with social distancing and just to make it, quite frankly, easier for us to deal with instead of having the lobby open. And as of today, we just reopened our lobby, so we're going to see how that works. And also, one thing I forgot to say is once COVID came, overnight we had to figure out how to do online ordering. So I set up online ordering overnight, and that went very well to the point where we kind of had to turn it off a bit because we couldn't keep up with the order. So our smallness has worked for us in this situation.
Interesting. So you had no online ordering beforehand. It was just, what did people just called up, placed an order, and came in and got it?
Correct.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a no sleep night.
Yeah. Oh my God. Edwin, what's going on with City Belt? Oh, you're muted. Now,
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. City Built's been around for 3 years. We opened in 2017. Our goal and hope is to share our Puerto Rican culture with West Michigan and just be a light in our community. And so that's what we've been doing for 3 years, which has been great because we've always tried to tie ourselves to our community. And so during our shutdown, it was cool to see so many people come in and support us and just say, you know, hey, we're purposefully and intentfully spending our money here because at the end of this, we hope to be able to come back and sit in your tap room. So that was great. We had to shift gears overnight. We bought a canning line last year, maybe a little bit soon for a brewery our size, but we look like geniuses because that was the only way we could sell beer. And so everything that we had brewed prior to March 15 basically went into cans, and our business changed a little bit. The percentage of food sales to beer sales has shifted in a direction that serves us, which is good. We always wanted to be a brewery. It's just good fortune that we have talented chefs in our kitchen. And so we became known for our food. So, which was great. And, but I wanted to be known for our beer. So we've been soft opening for 2 days. Our grand reopening was on Wednesday. The hope was to kind of see how our new systems work out. And so we're tweaking them every day a little bit just to provide safety for our staff mainly, but for our community as well.
Great. Chef Michael, you've got a bunch of locations.
Yeah, a couple. So good to be here. Michael Alexander. I'm the Director of Concept Development and the Corporate Chef for Restaurant Partners. We have 15 restaurants in Grand Rapids, another 5 up in Traverse City. The company's been around for about 30 years. The business was started with the Bagel Beanery on Michigan Street, like 30 years ago. And it's just grown since then. We're a company of individually owned restaurants. So we are a big company, but all of our restaurants have their own identities, they're part of their own communities. We run them separately to keep it that way. So it's, really busy. Pre-COVID, I mean, we were having a record year, and then, that dropped on our heads like a bag of bricks. We had to make a lot of quick decisions. I feel like we did the right ones, for our staff. That was the most important thing to us. I mean, we have almost 1,000 employees in the company. So I think in 30 years, he had laid off 2 people ever. And in one day, we laid off 800 and something. But we made that decision because knowing sales were going to be terrible and they weren't going to make any money, getting them on unemployment as quickly as possible was the right thing to do for all of them. Right. It also allowed us to kind of turtle and protect ourselves so that we could reopen. I'm happy to say that we're opening everything back up again. So that was exciting. A few odd things. I mean, I could go on for days about all the sanitation procedures and all of those things that we've been put into place. But two of our locations, especially Apache Trout Grill up in Traverse City and then Rockwell Republic here in Grand Rapids, we're actually beating last year's sales with 50% occupancy with a very limited staff. So it's everybody's stretched to their limit. Everybody's working really hard, you know, and right now the game for us is hiring and training.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with all the new policies of
Right.
face masks and sanitizing everything.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about that a little bit before we get into the social zone topic. Just interesting, you know, staff wise, you know, how has it been for you opening back up and bringing staff back on?
Right.
Are you, so for all of you, are you rehiring old staff? Are people wanting to come back? Are people scared to come back? I'm sure it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we made a promise to our employees on that very first day that they would all have jobs waiting for them when we reopened. And so we made that offer to everybody. Our core staff in all of our restaurants came back eagerly. The kitchen staff came back quicker, but their money's a little easier to guarantee. So yeah. I think that's why we were able to do that. The core service staff, I mean, they all came back and they're all working their tails off. But there are a lot of people that weren't sure what the money was going to look like when we came out of the other side of it, and they preferred to stay at home. Some of them just didn't feel comfortable, you know, and we weren't going to push anybody into a situation that made them uncomfortable. So yeah, so I mean, hiring, it's the good thing is we're seeing a lot of, I mean, I'm seeing quadruple or more the number of applicants when we post a job ad now, because there's so many people that are actually looking. Yeah. So it's for us, it's not so much getting people in the door. It's just finding the bodies and the time to train them properly, because we don't want to just throw people at it, you know. But it's been a long time since you had a stack of applications sitting on your desk. I can tell you that. So that part's been good.
What about you guys?
So we had 48 employees at the beginning or in March 1st, and through the shutdown we dropped down to 5. Not counting myself, and then we're now probably around 15 or 16 employees.
Yep.
And so our service has changed. We've limited our hours significantly. So we just
Oops, I think he froze. You know what? We'll see what happens here. Why don't we go on?
How about now?
Okay, yeah.
Good?
You're okay. Yeah, you were frozen there for.
So anyways, we're just reevaluating how we do business, and with a goal of selling more beer. We're just open during times where people drink beer, and so we're not open at lunch. So there's a lot of shifts that we don't need to cover anymore. Yeah,
that makes sense. And Tarra, what about you? You're a little bit smaller, but still, you obviously have staff.
So this actually worked out pretty well for us, because the week before COVID, we were literally in a tailspin because we were so short-staffed. And then when COVID came, our daughter came home from college, our niece came home from college, a nephew works for the GRPS system. He came to work for us. We have an aunt. So we had all of these people who normally weren't available, who come in on the summer sometime to help us out. They all were available, wanting to get out of the house. And so we ended up with a full staff, but now our issue is, now that things are potentially going back, we're going to lose those people. So right now we're trying to find candidates who we can cross train, so that when the other people leave, we can actually have real staff that isn't friends and family.
Yeah.
I'm honestly kind of excited, because the people who are applying now are people who probably could be making more at home, but they're choosing to work. So I'm hoping that's a more quality candidate,
right,
who's actually wanting to work. So I'm hopeful and excited about who we may find.
Yep, that's awesome. So why don't we'll shift now and talk about, I mean, there's so many interesting stories about restaurants reopening, some choosing not to reopen at a 50% capacity and waiting until they can be full staffed and full service. But the whole concept of social zones is really, I think, interesting. Innovative. It's happening in, I think, a lot of cities across the country as a way for cities to give opportunities for restaurants to be able to accommodate more people in a safer outdoor setting. So maybe Hanna, I think you've been involved in some of the discussions in the city of Grand Rapids, and maybe you could kind of lay out what the idea of a social zone is.
Sure. Thanks, Laurie. So I think the initial intention of the creation of social zones was born out of discussing the creative use of space, particularly when the state government was talking about reopening. This was, even back in April, talking about when we got to a point to start reopening businesses, knowing that food service businesses and retail businesses were going to be hit the hardest, and wanting to figure out ways that the cities, local municipalities could create leniencies around ordinances and other, kind of easing up on some of those barriers to help make it easier to reopen. One of those items being creative use of space, of public right-of-ways, street closures, and also thinking about kind of creating this, bringing us back to a vibrant community space. And we see in a lot of other cities, and a lot of us for a long time have been pushing for, why don't we close more streets down and do more, active use and creative use of space. And so I think this was a way to, push folks that, might be hesitant to create opportunities like this, because it's challenging and it can take a lot of resources and things to kind of push them beyond that comfort level. And into, well, this is what we need to do in order to serve businesses. That said, so I think, well, to go back to what the concept of the social zone actually is, and there are, I'm definitely happy to discuss with the business owners themselves kind of where it makes most sense, but to create shared use of space, there are a couple of different things, that the city's working on to create a shared use of space when we have instances of 4 or more restaurants that are located kind of adjacent to one another. So there's, a larger space that's cordoned off and can be used for service. And there are things within that like liquor licenses, so businesses can retain service of alcohol, which is something that helps a business with their margins, because alcohol has a higher profit margin than food does. So that's a positive thing. And then also to maximize the use of space to create sort of this sort of shared community feel. And on top of that, then there's also businesses that are more set off from business corridors. So they're creating opportunities for individual permits. So a business could take over maybe parking spaces in front. I know City Built, for instance, has a parklet right outside the front. And so I'm sure that, Edwin, you can probably speak to this, but I'm sure you had a bunch of rigmarole to deal with the city and permitting and all these other things to get that parklet. And those of us who, are walking by City Built, we think, oh, this is beautiful. This is such a cool idea. But the challenge of just getting that to happen is significant. So if there are ways that we can kind of lower those barriers so that businesses can just say, hey, I'm going to use these parking spots, or I'm going to close off this sidewalk so that I can use this space. So there will be the individual opportunities, and then, sort of the larger shared spaces for restaurants. And I think the intention is to do the same for retail businesses as well. So that there can be sort of a street shopping kind of concept, and it'll be easier for folks to, mask up and stay distant from one another. Outdoors is safer than indoors. And so kind of creates a little bit of ease. Now, I think I would be remiss not to mention that with all of those positive things also come challenges. So that means that a service staff are having to run inside and outside, and that's not something that is a typical thing for restaurants to do. Some businesses do have outdoor patios and stuff and are used to dialing in their staffing in that way, and others don't. So I think that there are challenges there. And there's also the challenge of figuring out how to outfit those spaces. So do you need to order new tables and chairs, or can you rent them, or is the city going to provide them? So there are some things that are still being figured out in ways that we can continue to lower the barriers and the cost of those permits. A lot of nonprofits are going to be able to like pull those permits, particularly for the larger social zones. And there are ways that nonprofits can pull liquor licenses for a space, and sometimes that can make things easier. So the neighborhood business associations and the corridor improvement districts can get involved. But a lot of those organizations are volunteer run or very small. So there's all these kind of like small challenges within that that folks are working together on. The idea being, to make it as easy as possible for businesses that want to take advantage of that and would benefit from taking advantage of a social zone to, be able to plug and play and do that quickly and easily without having to do a lot of paperwork to figure out all of those, more bureaucratic sort of challenges. So, I think that's kind of, anyway.
No, that's great. I mean, that's fabulous. I think each one of the restaurant people here will have a different take on how this will affect you, or maybe it won't, because you're in different locations and you have different kinds of operations. So I think it'll be interesting to hear each one of you maybe talk about what your thoughts are on social zones and whether or not you will be able to or want to take advantage of something like that. Edwin, what do you think? I think you've got a social zone like you, correct?
We do. Yeah. From what I understand, it's being planned for us. There's some parking spots where they are adding some tables and chairs. That is just south of our current parklet. But then there's a parking lot across the street that the city owns that it looks like there's going to be like 9 tables over there. And so we've just arranged our tap room so that people are getting takeout so anything that leaves the tap room is getting put in takeout, compostable packaging, and we're providing trash cans and going around and picking up any litter. But we're excited. It's really nice out. People like to sit outside anyways, and so we're just trying to figure out how we can make it comfortable and accommodate people safely, and maybe even some reprieve from the sun. So we're looking at different tents, and so we're going to take full advantage. We're excited at the prospect.
Okay.
So the fact that we're by the river helps us a lot too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tarra, what do you guys think? And Tarra, with Daddy Pete's having a food truck, how are food trucks impacted, or are they not?
I am actually not certain at this point. I've asked the question, but I haven't gotten an answer just yet. Right now, we are staying still with the food truck. Right now we're staying still with the food truck.
Okay.
We're thinking through what we can do as far as our own. We're not near a social zone. Like there's one at Alger and Burton, but that's not like walkable from our front door. But
okay.
We've been contemplating maybe creating our own social zone in our own parking lot. What has happened over the COVID time period, we've had several trunk picnics where people have sat in their trunks and eaten their food in our parking lot. So just trying to figure out how we can help people eat their food. So many people are not wanting to go right back home. So just trying to think through what we can do here to help facilitate that.
Right. What about you, Michael? You've got a bunch of different locations.
We do. So, it's some of our locations that have parking. We've portioned off portions of the parking lot to actually add outdoor seating. The Sundance Grill and Cascade, we got approval to block off, I think it was like 12 parking spaces. Yeah, so like Sundance Grill downtown, we actually always had a parklet on Pearl right there, but it's so close to that corner that before COVID, we had decided we weren't going to put that out again next year unless the city would let us move it down the sidewalk further, so it wasn't getting hit by the city bus anymore. Yeah, it makes dinner exciting. But
I told Michael yesterday that when we talked on the phone that we actually at Stark Garden were sitting up at our desk in the window and saw the city bus come around and hit the parklet.
Yeah. So we actually moved that parklet to another location to add seating there, but those spaces that are like just down Pearl a little bit, I know we have an application in, seeing about more seating there, more seating on the sidewalk. So we're used to serving out on the sidewalk, so our staff is already set up that way. So I mean, the second we get the green light, we're ready to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our other locations, like the Michigan Street Omelet Shop, we kind of got the thumbs up to move some tables like up that sidewalk. So we were able to add some more tables there. So it's definitely beneficial. I spent the first 15 years of my career in California. I kind of wish we had that weather so that this could be sustainable over a longer period of time. But I mean, for now, it's great that the city's thinking of it. I think it's progressive. So it's nice to see.
Yeah. And so Hanna, what I think I know that these are all still things that are in the works, and there's lots of things to be worked out. But with regard to alcohol, then, like for Edwin, if somebody were to come and then go and sit in the social zone across the street, and they're buying beer from City Built, they can walk across the street and sit there and drink it. Is the idea that social zones are adjacent? I think they're all adjacent to the establishments that they're serving, so people can take their alcohol and walk it to that space. Correct? Or are there servers as well? Like Edwin, you're not having servers, you're just having people do take out and go sit outside and eat. But in some places it's
correct. So
there's servers.
We're using crowlers and cans.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're not serving across the street. Yeah. Some servers will go outside, but we're not requiring them to.
Yeah.
Just to help people that are sitting on our parklet.
Yep. Gotcha. So I guess that was kind of a weird question. Hanna, you got my gist.
I did, and Edwin and Chef Michael particularly, I'm sure, can speak to this as well. And so I won't pretend to know. I know that there are a lot of legal implications to liquor licenses, and there are a lot of different types of liquor license. So a couple of the things that the city is looking at, and Edwin alluded to this earlier, actually, because it was a great business move on their part to be able to can beer and sell it, because the license that City Built more than likely must have is, I believe, called an SDD license. Is that what it's called, Edwin, where you're able to sell alcohol retail?
We have a microbrewer's license, which gives us the opportunity to distribute or self-distribute.
Yeah. So businesses like a brewery has that opportunity. But I know the city is working with the state, and I don't believe there has been any finalization of this. But for a business like Rockwell, for instance, they obviously have a liquor license. They're able to sell beer, wine, and spirits. There's a different license for selling beer and wine. Mm-hmm. And selling spirits, and there's a different license for just selling beer, et cetera, and so forth. But for a business that has the license to sell cocktails and beer and wine, but doesn't produce those items on site, they just source from a distributor. Mm-hmm. What they're looking at, so Chef Michael's companies, that Rockwell's, could not sell like pre-made cocktail to go. They couldn't sell a retail margarita for somebody to take with them. They can sell the food to take with them to go, but they can't do that with alcohol. So but like we mentioned earlier, there's a huge difference in margin between selling alcohol and selling food. So to be able to sell alcohol at retail price, like a cocktail, it really helps a business recoup, again, like kind of get back to their margins. So I know that there's been a lot of discussion around things like creating leniencies around, or making it easier for a business to apply for a temporary or permanent license that would allow them to sell, a cocktail. For instance, some of our favorites like Lindo Mexico or Luna downtown, to be able to sell, they can sell their margarita mix right now to go, just the juice basically, but they can't sell it with the tequila in it. And that would help, that would help with the revenues. So there's been conversations around that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Senate did just pass the 37-1, I think is the bill. So it passed through the Senate that you can actually do cocktails to go. So hopefully that continues on down the line.
Yeah.
Because that would be huge.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it. It's a sangria from here, but we can't sell it because it has brandy in it. So yeah.
Right. I want the sangria from there.
Yeah.
And a lot of other cities, I think, too, have even pre-COVID, they've kind of created opportunities for activation of public spaces through this. Like, we think about the French Quarter and think about some of the other cities that have. Austin has done a good job with this to create, public spaces where people can engage in all this activity. So this is something that hopefully, if we continue to see progress, this could carry beyond just, kind of an emergency thing, and more of like, this could be really create a cool kind of vibrant scene in our downtown and then in other neighborhoods.
Right.
And I had also mentioned, there are also rules around nonprofits. So pulling like a day license. So for instance, if a nonprofit neighborhood business association or, an organization like Local First or someone else, where there's, a bazillion nonprofits in Grand Rapids, as we all know. So we could pull a 24-hour service license, and that there's liabilities involved in that. And there are other things too. But if there was going to be, a social zone on Ionia, for instance, or a social zone on Eastern and Burton, a nonprofit could pull a 24-hour license, or, maybe a longer period of time for like a day-long event for a number of restaurants to take advantage of. And then there would be some organization around what that would look like within that, but that's also an option. And then if a business pulls a temporary service permit just for outside their space, then they would have to figure out what their perimeter would be, and there would be. So I know, and again, there's very strict laws from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission around each one of these different types of licenses. And, to get audited by the MLCC is like a huge deal, and it's very challenging. And for a restaurant to risk losing their liquor license, that would be disastrous. So there's a lot of work that would go into making it making the risk low enough for a business to say, we'll give this a try in hopes that we recoup this income, because the risk is so high if for some reason they didn't know, the small print, and all of a sudden somebody came and said, you're doing this wrong, and then we're going to revoke your licenses tens of thousands of dollars or more, potentially for fines and other things like that. So it is very challenging. I know the city's working hard to kind of break down those barriers, but it's going to be a little bit of a long-term thing too.
Yeah.
Laurie, we do have a question.
Okay.
If I could jump in here.
Yep, absolutely.
So Griselda said, for the restaurants that have tables outside, how are you handling the issue of the bathrooms? Are customers coming inside your establishment? And if so, what process do you have in place to reduce the risk?
Anybody can take that. Tarra, do you have bathrooms, public bathrooms?
So we are officially categorized as takeout because we do not have a restroom for the public. So that's always been the case for us. We've always been takeout.
Okay, that's what I thought. Michael, what about you guys?
Yeah, so all of our restaurants that have outside seating there's construction on the road outside of me, so if you hear a little bit of that, I apologize. But all of our restaurants that have outside seating, we have bathrooms inside for the public. We've moved all of our host stands, as long as weather permits, outside of the doors. It enables us to better control traffic in and out of the building. We have sanitation procedures in place where all touch surfaces are getting sanitized at the top and bottom of every hour. So, front doors, bathrooms as well are getting completely sanitized every half hour. And then we also have a policy in place that all staff are wearing masks, but any customers from the time that they enter the restaurant until they get to their table or get to the bathroom, they have to have a mask on or a face covering of some kind. When they're sitting at their table, it's like their little oasis. They're free to take it off. But by having control of the door and then making sure everything's consistently being sanitized and everybody's wearing their masks, it's worked out well so far.
Right. And so obviously if people are sitting outside, they would come in to use the restroom.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Edwin, same for you?
Yeah, exactly the same. We have many of the same procedures. We're cleaning our bathrooms and sanitizing doors and handles and all that every half hour. We're trying to keep the traffic that's inside, traffic who's actually spending money with us. I'm not seeing that be an issue yet, but the whole time that we've been closed and just doing carry out, we had our bathrooms were closed, but people were buying beer and going across the street and having a picnic, and nothing was open.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we would allow people in, and then we just clean behind them.
Yeah.
And so we're busier now, so we can't clean behind every person, and so it's just a regimented timed thing.
Right. Murphy, is there anything else? No. Okay. So, I mean, I think this is a great opportunity, and certainly we all love the idea of being able to sit outside. And I mean, we always can't wait in Michigan for the summer weather so that you can sit and eat outside, and it's such a short period of time. But we're going through all of this to create these social zones, and then when the weather turns, we're back to being inside, I guess. And I think a lot of restaurants try to extend that outdoor period by, there's heaters and different things that you can do to kind of create a warmer, a warmer atmosphere. But how long is the expectation for these social zones to be? I mean, it's clearly weather driven, I guess. And then, do we do this again next year? Is this something that, like Hanna said, it would be really great if this could become part of the restaurant scene in Grand Rapids, that when the weather gets nice, we can expand and creatively use our outdoor spaces. So, what are your thoughts, Tarra, on, I think because of your situation and being a takeout restaurant always, I think even prior to COVID, and this is just me personally speaking, I think the trend has been, we've seen a real uptick in people doing takeout anyway, with Grubhub and DoorDash and things like that. People were really starting to embrace that whole takeout concept. And so I think it just continues and probably grows. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's a question that we're constantly thinking of, because this really was not our end game, being a takeout destination. It just happens to be convenient for the space that we're in right now. Mm-hmm. Our ultimate goal was to be a sit-down restaurant. So now we're thinking through, what does that future actually look like? And just really keeping an eye out on what's happening right now and how it transitions once everything reopens. Like, will people now be used to being at home and still want to be at home, or will people need to get out and really want to be somewhere where they can get out of the house and actually sit down and relax? We do have quite a few customers that we do currently. We did lose pre-COVID because we didn't have seating. So that was a strong customer request, was to have seating, but now we've got to reconsider even what that future of seating looks like. Do we need to find a space that's some indoor seating with lots of outdoor seats, right, just in case this COVID thing or some other thing comes again? But there's just so many unknowns for the future that we've got to think through, and that's a huge investment to make. to be in this position all over again. So
Right.
we're watching the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, how do you plan for that? How do you all, you ramp up, you try to maximize as much as you can right now. You've got extra, maybe outdoor space. And then at some point that starts to wind down. And so then how do you even plan for the unknown, for what it's going to look like in the winter, Edwin, what are your thoughts?
We're buying more tanks. So we're increasing our capacity. Right now we could barely keep up with the tap room during the closure because everything was packaged. And so people we sold entire batches of beer in 4 or 5 days, which never happened before.
Right.
Which is good news. But what we learned was we had too many employees and we were open too many hours. And so rather than just open all the way up, we're just kind of slowly opening and taking advantage of the times where we think we'll be busy. And so far that's working. But also we are focusing on our brewing production and what's happening in that space, because if we are going to make it through any of that, it'll be because we get really good and really efficient at our manufacturing part of our business.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Michael.
There you go. So we're getting, I should say, very efficient at maximizing our 50%. Even some of our places are actually even under 50% because we're being overly strict with the whole 6 foot, separation thing. But we've also really beefed up our carry-out delivery program. We have a delivery concept that we're working on right now. It's a project we started about a year ago, thinking that it would take about a year and a half to actually have a final product. We've fast-tracked that, to where we can actually get into a situation where certain locations can provide their own delivery. Just to be able to reach a bigger, customer base. For the people that don't feel comfortable coming in, or, Rockwell's been on a wait every night since we've been open. So our people that just can't, but they still want the food, we have an easy way that's reasonably priced to get it to them if they can't come to us. So that's been, the biggest things that we've done. And it's, that was the trend all along, but they were predicting about a 5-year trend for all the delivery. I think everything just got fast forwarded a lot, like 3-4 years. It's exciting to see like new things pop up in the restaurant world. We've been preaching this whole time coming through this thing that you just always have to look for the silver linings and things. And we've definitely found some. It's been tough, but we've definitely found some silver linings. So it's been good.
Yeah. Tarra, I see your comment here. For those who will be reopening seating, will you put a cap on how long guests will stay since the capacity is cut in half?
We have. Yeah. At Rockwell, and we're not kicking people out after a certain period of time, but we do ask if we're at capacity. We do tell tables as we're sitting, that we ask that they keep their table time to 2 hours. And but then it's on us to give them the full Rockwell experience in those 2 hours. And everybody's been very understanding about that so far, especially for our deck. That's where it's, that's where people usually like to camp out. So
yeah. Oh, what do you have there?
So we have a sign that says no camping. And so we also have a sign that says no bitching. And so it's uncomfortable for everybody. And so, we remind people that it's uncomfortable for everybody. And so we're doing our best to continue to be hospitable, or how we think Puerto Ricans are hospitable. Right. And so, cause that's part of our goal and our purpose. And so, but I'd be remiss to say through all of this, we also started a pop-up kitchen. And so we launched yesterday, and then it's for sale today online, Le Grand Zombie. which is a Creole kitchen. And so kind of based on the whole ghost kitchen idea, but we thought people are starting to order out, and there's these services like Uber Eats that I probably tended to hate on in the past because it's expensive, and they profit off of all of our hard work. And so that's tough. But so does our distributor for beer. And so we just need to figure out what that margin is and how we can win, understanding what the playing field is. And so that menu is specifically created so that we could test out what it looks like to use DoorDash or Uber Eats, and if people will order that. So also it's an attempt to keep my chef happy and engaged and challenged.
Yeah. Tarra, do you do any delivery? I'm not sure I know that.
We we used to do delivery, but like Edwin was saying, it was a tough pill to swallow because of the amount of fees and percentages that they were asking for. Like, my husband gets up at 3 a.m. to smoke meat, and now you're asking me to hand a large chunk of that over to you to pick it up and drop it off at a customer. On top of, we're very strong, like Edwin was saying, hospitality is important, and getting it right is important. We take our reviews very seriously, and some of our worst reviews have been as a result of the delivery services, not because of the food, but because of the delivery service. And so once we got through the cost and the bad reviews, we turned it off. So we would like to go back to it because we did have quite a few customers, but at the time it just wasn't worth it for us.
Yeah. And Michael, you were saying that you guys have been toying with the idea of your own delivery. Yeah.
We it's definitely that ghost kitchen concept, but trying to figure out a way where we can take that power back of controlling our product, the end result to the customer. We do things like, all of our because we do delivery at several of our restaurants, and it's using the sealable bags and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're passing off your product to somebody else that at that point is responsible for its quality by the time it makes it to the customer. And if anybody does have a problem with it, it comes back on the restaurant, not really the delivery service. So there's a formula, there's a way to make that profitable for restaurants to do for themselves. We're not 100% there yet of having figured it out. I think staffing it was always the hugest issue, where it's kind of looking like that may not be as big of a hurdle as we thought it was before. We're definitely pushing forward with it. We're going to start it out really, really small, just to kind of gauge, what customers are thinking. Kind of following the old Jimmy John's model. They do it better than everybody. Is to keep your delivery radius small, and just like take back control of that product. So
yeah. I'm going back to something when you had said something before, and everybody was talking, so I didn't want to interrupt. But so with people waiting, like if it sounds like obviously people can do reservations, but you're still accepting just people coming in and walking into the restaurant. So in the past, if you walked in and the restaurant was there were no tables available, you'd just go hang out at the bar. So that's probably not happening, right? Where you can have So are people just waiting outside?
It's different by location, depending on what the parking lot or outside the door situation is. At Rockwell, we started to do this, but then it wasn't as necessary as we thought it was going to be. But actually, at one of our upstairs bars, it's really narrow, so you couldn't really fit a lot of people in there anyway. So we kind of turned it into a waiting area that's all 6 feet of distance, so people can have a cocktail while they wait. A lot of our other places with our online wait lists, once they get on the wait list, they can either do it from home and then they're not really waiting at the door, or they can get on the wait list and wait in their car until the table's ready. At Rockwell, they've been lining up on the sidewalk. We have little blue stickers all the way down the sidewalk going both directions, so people can stay, 6 feet apart from each other. And everybody's been very understanding. Traverse City, our restaurants up there have been open longer because they actually got opened up earlier than us. So we have the benefit of seeing how things are, changing up there. I can say the biggest thing is people are starting to lose their patience for it, for having to wear masks and having to stay as distant as they are. And so, I mean, for anybody that's, I would assume the same thing is going to happen here in town in the next few weeks. People are going to start losing, they're going to start being less patient with having to follow those, those guidelines. But it's, then it's our responsibility to, in a positive customer service way, approach those situations. It's keeping the staff safe. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Hanna, in the social zones, who is responsible? Is it the individual restaurants that are participating? Like, who would be responsible for maintaining the safety precautions and the distancing? And if people are wearing, I mean, I guess it's outside, so maybe it's different with wearing masks and things like that. But I mean, as far as any of that, is that on the city? Is that on the individual people who are part of that particular zone?
Yeah, that's a great question, Laurie. And I think the answer is, it's ultimately up to the businesses, which is part of the challenge. I don't think there's been discussion about mobilizing more downtown ambassadors, but also like in other parts of in other neighborhoods as well. DGRI has a really great downtown ambassadors program. People probably saw them if you were out and about downtown during the shelter in place. There were folks walking around with the bright green shirts, like wiping down high touch areas and things like that. So there's been discussion about those folks kind of milling around and helping people remember, hey, if you do need to use the restroom inside, throw your mask on, make sure that that's being followed. Currently, it's a little bit of, I think that's one of the biggest barriers one of the many barriers for the businesses is that on top of everything else, needing to now help to encourage folks to just do the basic stuff that they need to do. Mm-hmm. And so one thing, I know we're wrapping up, but one thing I wanted to make sure to mention, and I'm hoping folks are tuning in. There's been some really great points Rachel has made in the chat, in the live comments about all of the intentionality that businesses, and I think everyone can see with these 3 businesses represented here. And I can say from talking to any number of our hundreds of members over the course of the last several months that there's an incredible amount of intentionality going into every decision that these businesses are needing to make. Right. None of these decisions are easy, and all of them are requiring risk and sacrifice of dollars, sacrifice of staffing, sacrifice of, like comfort level. And so right. I would implore any of us who, are wanting to support local businesses, whether it's restaurants, retails, whoever, retail outlets, whoever, to understand that it is going to be, to Edwin's point, it is going to be strange. And there are going to need to be things we do that are less comfortable. Costs might increase. In fact, I hope they do. We already undervalue good food. We already undervalue local products to begin with, in my opinion. And so because like these margins are so tight for businesses, particularly those, and I know all 3 of these folks on the call now prioritize sourcing local food as well, local produce, local meats, all of these options. That adds to cost, and it adds to the, the intentionality. Of course, the quality of the product is higher. And I think, it's an interesting component of when we do see supply chain challenges. If you're right. sourcing more local items, it's easier to get those items when things are getting backed up at the state and national level. And I think we saw that earlier on in the quarantine. But I would just say to everyone out there to expect to see, some price increases and accept that that's what the value of what you're getting. Tip everybody a lot because people are working really hard and this is weird for everybody. And just do what you can. And if you don't feel comfortable going out to eat or you don't want to wear a mask, then just order and pick up at the door, or just don't go out, Right. But do what you can. Buy the beer to go, buy the cocktails to go. you know, and I think that's a really important thing for us all to think about too, is that it's not easy for anybody. So let's give everybody a little bit extra grace.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, this is obviously, this is something that nobody could have planned for. You know, you run a business, you forecast, you plan, you try to look at trends. And, you know, no one plans for a pandemic. So then you have to weather that storm, and then you have to reopen and try to, you know, carry out your business that is obviously not going to be like it was before. And yet you don't know how to plan for it. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we're all in this together as people who are business owners, people who work in some of these businesses, people who are customers. You know, I think this is a time for everybody to, like you said, Hanna, give everybody some grace and just, you know, be patient and you know, try to reward people for being innovative and for trying things. And so what I'd like to do, we've got a couple minutes left. I feel like Hanna, you kind of wrapped up. So no, I mean, you know, and I want to give Tarra and Edwin and Michael a chance to kind of to say something as well. Say, you know, whatever you kind of want to sort of be your parting comments. I'll go, Tarra.
Let's see. Wow, that's great. Visit local restaurants and businesses to help support us. Honestly, we are all putting ourselves and our staff at risk to be open to the public. So just be kind. That is the biggest thing. Be kind.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Edwin.
Yeah, I'm hopeful about our future as a business and a brewery. Outside of that, be intentful about how you spend your money. You know, when you spend your dollar at City Built, we give it to people who live in Grand Rapids who go around and spend their money at other local businesses. And so those dollars stay in our community, which makes for a stronger community. And so, and we live in a great town, so support our local businesses.
Before I have Michael wrap up, I do actually have a question for Hanna. So, so obviously the city is being innovative and still putting all of these things together. I mean, is there an opportunity for people to make comments or suggestions, or how is that working? Is that just working through organizations?
Yeah, when you say people, do you mean like business owners or more just like
yes, I'm sorry, yes, for
Yeah.
business owners who maybe have some ideas or who want to be part of the process?
Yeah. I would probably, for ease of, you know, recognizing that folks don't have a huge amount of time to navigate the channels, maybe Laurie, if you want to throw my email in the chat or something. I don't see a way for me to do that, but
we'll do that.
Folks are welcome to reach out to me, and I can try to navigate folks to, or just send comments. The city and many of the organizations that are the business support organizations are meeting frequently to discuss this. And so if you have ideas or concerns, I can bring those up in those meetings. I can make sure that they get to the right channel. There also are some other opportunities that like pop-ups and things that I know that Local First and the Chamber and others are working on. And there also are some like funding opportunities. So I know that Rachel in the chat and Tarra had mentioned, and I've spoken to a few folks about, like, if you do need to buy tables and chairs for whatever reason, or if you do need to make an investment, So there are like funds available through the Hispanic Chamber, through the Grand Rapids Chamber, and a few others that are going to be doing grants and things like that. So you feel free to reach out to me, and I will navigate folks to whatever channels as best I can. I know that Start Garden also has those capabilities too. So
great, thanks. All right, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, going with what Tarra and Edwin said, I mean, it's you know, just it's great if people can just be cool with each other. You know, I mean, it's yeah, it might be a pain having to wear a mask from, the time you get to your table or you get from the door to the table, but just remember there's line cooks back there working in 100 and something degree heat that have had those things on for 10, 12 hours. I mean, they're pushing through, and we're literally doing everything we absolutely can to abide by the rules and to come out of this on the other side, and even if you don't think it's necessary, there's people that are dining around you that do. So, just be respectful, be cool. And, eventually, hopefully it'll all get back to, people 4 deep at the bar. So.
Yep. Well, I just want to thank all of you for being part of this morning. I think it's a great discussion. I'm sure we could probably go on for another hour talking, because it's such a moving, and I mean moving in, it's fast moving, fast pace innovation, and everybody's kind of doing all kinds of things to make this work. So I appreciate all of you for being here. And we'll keep in touch, and we'll maybe have this conversation again further down the road and see what things look like. So thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.